They had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 1,000 worlds. Their ships were the fastest. Their weapons were the strongest. No species had ever challenged them and lived to tell the story. High Arbiter Eth sat in his command chair aboard the great warship Eternal Dominion. His gray skin reflected the blue light of the holographic displays around him. His four eyes scanned the reports from across the Empire. Everything was peaceful. Everything was under control. Just another boring day in the endless reign of the hegemony. 6 months after the Prometheus went silent, a weak signal reached Earth. It arrived at a listening station in the Australian desert at 3 in the morning. The technician on duty almost ignored it. Signals came from space all the time. Most of them were just noise. But this signal was different. It carried a code that only one ship in history had ever used. Within an hour, the message reached the United Earth Council. Within 3 hours, every major government on the planet knew the truth. Humanity was not alone, and the aliens they had found were not friendly. Admiral Helena Vance stood in the center of the council chamber. She was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had spent her life defending Earth from threats both human and natural. Now she faced something much bigger. "The crew of the Prometheus is dead," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "All 53 of them. They survived for approximately 48 hours after their encounter with the alien vessel. Then their power failed completely." The council members sat in shocked silence. Many of them had known people on that ship. The Prometheus mission had been the pride of humanity. Its crew were heroes, and now they were gone. "Before they died," Admiral Vance continued, "Captain sent us a gift." She touched a button and the main display filled with data, ship designs, weapon systems, shield frequencies, patrol routes. She sent us everything they learned about the aliens. They call themselves They have ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their technology is far beyond ours. "Then we have no chance against them," one council member said. "We should prepare for defense, build shelters, hide." Admiral Vance shook her head. "No, we should not hide." She pulled up a new image. It showed the warship that had ignored the Prometheus. "Look at this vessel. It is massive. It has powerful energy weapons. It has shields that can stop any laser or plasma bolt we could create." "Then how can we fight them?" another council member asked. "Their shields are designed to stop energy," Admiral Vance explained. "They absorb and redirect beams of light and heat. This makes sense. Most advanced species use energy weapons. They are clean, efficient, and powerful." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "But we humans never stopped using the oldest weapon in existence: mass." She showed them a simple diagram. A long rod of tungsten, 10 meters long and 2 meters wide. Nothing fancy, just metal. "If we accelerate this rod to 30% of the speed of light and aim it at a target, the impact will release more energy than a nuclear bomb, and the shields cannot stop it. They are not designed for kinetic impacts. They have never faced an enemy stupid enough to throw rocks." The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Some members looked hopeful, others looked afraid. "You want to go to war," the council president said slowly, "with a species that has ruled the stars for 12,000 years, using weapons made of metal." "Yes," Admiral Vance replied, "because they gave us no choice." She changed the display again. This time it showed the final transmission from Captain. Her face appeared on screen, tired and pale, lit only by emergency lights. "This is Captain Sarah of the UES Prometheus," the recording said. "We have made contact with alien life. They are called They found us drifting in space. They scanned our ship. They saw that we were alive and they left us to die." Her voice cracked slightly. "They did not attack us. They did not threaten us. They simply decided that we were not worth saving. To them, we are insects. We are nothing." The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Admiral Vance spoke again. "They had a choice. They could have helped our people. They could have simply made contact and communicated. Instead, they chose to ignore 53 human beings and let them die in the cold darkness of space. She looked around the room. They think we are primitives. They think we are weak. They believe we are so far beneath them that we do not deserve to exist. She straightened her uniform and raised her chin. I say we prove them wrong. The vote was not unanimous. Some council members argued for peace, for diplomacy, for patience, but they were outvoted. The majority agreed with Admiral Vance. They had shown their true nature. They had judged humanity without knowing anything about them. They had sentenced 53 people to death through simple arrogance. Such an insult could not go unanswered. Over the next 2 years, Earth transformed. Factories that once made cars now built missiles. Scientists who once studied medicine now designed weapons. Every nation united under a single goal: survival and vengeance. The plan was simple but clever. Humanity could not match the in direct combat. Their ships were too fast, their weapons too powerful, but humans were patient, and humans were sneaky. Small ships, barely larger than buses, were launched in secret. They carried no crew, only engines and targeting computers. They flew slowly toward space using the same primitive drives the aliens had mocked. Each ship carried 100 tungsten rods. They detected some of these ships. They scanned them and found nothing interesting. Just more human junk drifting through space. Not worth destroying, not worth investigating. They made the same mistake twice. After 2 years, humanity had placed over 200 ships in hidden positions throughout territory. They waited silently, powered down, invisible against the backdrop of stars. Admiral Vance looked at the tactical display showing their positions. 200 ships, 20,000 kinetic projectiles, all aimed at targets. "Captain," she said quietly, "you told them we were nothing. You were wrong." She touched the display gently. "We are humanity, and we remember everything." She gave the order to begin the attack. Earth's answer to first contact was finally ready. And it was carried by missiles. The border station Oral was the pride of the hegemony. It floated in space like a metal flower, its petals made of weapon platforms and shield generators. 3,000 soldiers lived aboard the station. They protected the border from pirates, rebels, and any species foolish enough to challenge the hegemony. Subarbiter sat in the command center, drinking hot liquid from a cup. It was a quiet night. Nothing ever happened at Oral. The hegemony's reputation kept enemies away. No one attacked territory. No one was that stupid. "Subarbiter," a sensor officer called out. "I am detecting multiple contacts approaching from deep space." "Side, what kind of contacts?" "Unknown drive signatures, very primitive, chemical propulsion." The officer paused. "They match the profile of that human vessel from 6 months ago." "Humans?" laughed. "More insects from that worthless planet. How many ships?" 12, Subarbiter. They are moving in formation." Finished his drink and set the cup aside. "Ignore them. They probably got lost again. They have no weapons that can harm us." "They are accelerating, Subarbiter, moving very fast now." "So what? Let them fly past. We have better things to do than waste time on primitives." The sensor officer frowned at his display. Something was wrong. The human ships were not just flying fast. They were flying incredibly fast, and they were releasing objects. Small, dense objects that moved even faster than the ships themselves. "Subarbiter," the officer said, his voice suddenly shaking. "The human ships have launched projectiles, 1,200 of them. They are traveling at 30% of light speed. Impact in 40 seconds." Dropped his cup. "What? Raise shields, activate weapons, destroy those projectiles." "Shields are online, Subarbiter, but these are not energy weapons. They are physical objects, solid metal. Our shields are not designed to stop them." "Then shoot them down." "They are too fast, Subarbiter. We cannot track them. We cannot hit them." Stared at the display. He watched the cloud of projectiles racing toward his station. Each one was just a simple rod of metal, no explosives, no warheads, just mass moving at impossible speed. He had time for one final thought. They were not primitives after all. The first rod struck Oral at exactly 7:42 local time. It hit the main shield generator and punched through like a needle through paper. The shield did nothing. The armor did nothing. The rod kept going, passing through the station and out the other side, leaving a hole 3 meters wide. Then the second rod hit, and the third, and the fourth. 1,200 impacts in less than 2 seconds. Each one carried the energy of a small nuclear bomb. Each one tore through metal and flesh without slowing down. The station broke apart like a toy made of glass. Fire erupted from 100 holes. Atmosphere vented into space. Bodies flew into the darkness. When it was over, Oral no longer existed. Only a cloud of debris remained, slowly spreading across the void. 3,000 died in those 2 seconds. They never had a chance to fight back. They never had a chance to surrender. They simply died, killed by weapons so simple that their ancestors had abandoned them 10,000 years ago. Aboard the UES Retribution, Admiral Helena Vance watched the destruction on her tactical display. The station was gone, completely gone, and not a single human ship had been damaged. "Confirmed kill," her tactical officer reported. "Target destroyed, no survivors detected." Admiral Vance nodded slowly. She felt no joy. She felt no satisfaction. She only felt cold determination. This was not about pleasure. This was about sending a message. "Move to the next target," she ordered. "We have 16 more stations to visit tonight." Across space, the same scene repeated itself. Human ships emerged from hiding, launched their projectiles, and vanished into the darkness. They struck border stations, patrol fleets, supply depots, and communication relays. Each target was destroyed in seconds. Each attack was perfect. They had never faced an enemy like this. Their shields were useless. Their weapons could not track the incoming projectiles. Their ships were too slow to escape. For the first time in 12,000 years, they felt fear. Admiral Vance stood on the bridge of the Retribution as reports came in from across the theater of operations. 7 stations destroyed. An entire patrol fleet eliminated. Supply lines cut. Communication networks damaged. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All frequencies, maximum power. I want every in this sector to hear this." The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Admiral Vance straightened her uniform and spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Admiral Helena Vance of the United Earth Navy. 6 months ago, you found one of our ships drifting in space. You scanned our vessel. You detected our people. You knew they were alive, and you knew they would die without help." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You chose to ignore them. You decided that 53 human beings were not worth your time. You left them to die alone in the darkness." Her voice grew harder. "We received their final transmission. We learned what you did. We learned who you are, and we decided that such an insult could not go unanswered." Around her, the bridge crew listened in silence. They had all lost friends on the Prometheus. They had all dreamed of this moment. "You thought we were primitives," Admiral Vance continued. "You thought we were too weak to matter. You thought you could ignore us forever." She smiled grimly. "You were wrong." She looked at the tactical display, showing the destruction humanity had caused in just one night. "Consider this our introduction. We are humanity. We remember those who wrong us, and we do not forgive." She cut the transmission. The message spread across space at the speed of light. It reached military bases and civilian colonies. It reached ships and stations and planetary governments. Everyone heard it. Everyone understood. The primitives had arrived. And they were angry. High Arbiter Eth stood in the great war room of the hegemony capital. His 4 eyes stared at the tactical display, but his mind refused to accept what he was seeing. Red markers covered the map. Each marker represented a destroyed installation. Each marker represented thousands of dead. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Completely impossible." Around him, his advisors and generals stood in shocked silence. They had never seen their leader so disturbed. They had never seen the hegemony suffer such losses. "How many?" Eth asked. His voice was hollow. 17 border stations destroyed, High Arbiter, the military commander reported. 4 patrol fleets eliminated. 12 supply depots damaged or destroyed. Approximately 40,000 casualties confirmed. The number continues to rise. Eth slammed his fist against the display table. The surface cracked under the impact. "They were primitives," he shouted. "They had chemical engines and metal tubes. How could they do this to us?" The science advisor stepped forward carefully. He was old and wise, and he was also terrified. "High Arbiter, I have analyzed the attack data. The humans used a weapon we had not considered. Simple kinetic projectiles, accelerated to relativistic speeds." "Explain in words I can understand," Eth demanded. "They threw rocks at us, High Arbiter, very fast rocks." The science advisor brought up a diagram. Each projectile was a solid rod of dense metal. They accelerated these rods to 30% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy is enormous. When the rod hits a target, it releases more force than our largest bombs. "Then stop the rocks, shoot them down." "We cannot, High Arbiter. The projectiles move too fast for our targeting systems. By the time we detect them, they have already hit us." The science advisor lowered his head. "Our shields are also useless. They are designed to absorb and redirect energy beams. A solid object simply passes through them." Eth felt his blood run cold. The entire military was built on the assumption that energy weapons were the ultimate form of warfare. Every species they had ever encountered used some form of beam or plasma technology. Their defenses were perfect against such weapons. But the humans did not use energy weapons. They used mass. Simple, stupid, primitive mass. And it worked. "Can we adapt our shields?" Eth asked. "Change them to stop physical objects?" "Yes, High Arbiter, but it will take time. Many cycles, perhaps longer. We must redesign our entire defensive doctrine." "We do not have cycles," Eth roared. "The humans are attacking right now." As if to prove his point, a new red marker appeared on the tactical display. Another station destroyed. Another 1,000 dead. The military commander spoke again. "High Arbiter, there is more. We have analyzed the distribution of human ships. They did not just arrive. They have been positioning themselves in our space for months, perhaps years. The vessels we detected and ignored. They were not lost explorers. They were scouts, weapons platforms. They were waiting for the order to attack." Eth felt the ground shift under his feet. He remembered that day, 6 months ago, when he had ordered his crew to ignore the drifting human vessel. He remembered laughing at their primitive technology. He remembered calling them insects. "The ship we found," he said slowly, "the Prometheus, it was not an accident." "No, High Arbiter, we believe it was deliberate. The humans sent that ship into our territory knowing we would find it. They wanted us to see their people. They wanted us to make a choice. And we chose to let them die." "Yes, High Arbiter, and now they are making us pay for that choice." Eth collapsed into his chair. His mind raced through the implications. The humans had planned this from the beginning. They had sacrificed 53 of their own people just to test the response. They had used that sacrifice to justify their attack. And they had spent years preparing for this moment, hiding their ships in space, waiting for the perfect time to strike. These were not primitives. These were patient, calculating predators. "What do they want?" Eth asked. "Have they made demands?" "Only one transmission, High Arbiter." The human leader called it an introduction. The military commander played the recording. Admiral Vance's voice filled the war room. Her words were clear and cold. She spoke of the Prometheus and its crew. She spoke of being ignored. She spoke of humanity's response. Consider this our introduction. We are humanity. We remember those who wrong us, and we do not forgive. The recording ended. Silence fell over the war room. They blame us for the death of their crew, a junior officer said. But we did not kill them. We simply did not help them. Eth shook his head. To them, there is no difference. We had the power to save those people, and we chose not to use it. In their eyes, we are murderers. But that is unreasonable. We cannot save every lost ship in the galaxy. We cannot be responsible for every species that wanders into our space. Reasonable or not, this is their response. Eth gestured at the tactical display, still covered in red markers. They did not ask for negotiations. They did not send diplomats. They sent missiles. This is how they communicate. Another red marker appeared on the display. Another installation gone. The science advisor spoke quietly. High Arbiter, I have studied the human species since the attack began. They are young. Their civilization is only a few thousand years old. They have never encountered another intelligent species before us. So what? So we were their first contact, High Arbiter. We were the first aliens they ever met, and we showed them that the universe is cold and cruel. We taught them that strength is all that matters. We taught them that the weak are left to die. Eth closed his eyes. He understood now. The humans had come to the stars with hope. They had dreamed of meeting other intelligent life. They had probably imagined friendship and cooperation and shared knowledge. Instead, they had met and they had taught them that the galaxy had no room for the weak. The humans had learned that lesson well. Too well. Send a message to their fleet, Eth ordered. Tell them we are willing to negotiate. Tell them we will discuss peace. Do you think they will accept, High Arbiter? Eth looked at the tactical display. 40,000 dead, 17 stations destroyed, and the attacks were still continuing. I do not know, he admitted, but we must try, because if we cannot stop them with words, I am not sure we can stop them at all. The message was sent. The hegemony waited. And in the darkness of space, humanity continued its work. The hegemony council chamber was ancient. Its walls were carved from stone taken from its ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into shadow. For 12,000 years, this room had witnessed the most important decisions in galactic history. Treaties had been signed here. Wars had been declared here. Species had been welcomed into the hegemony or condemned to destruction. Today, for the first time ever, a human stood at its center. Admiral Helena Vance walked alone across the stone floor. She wore her dress uniform, decorated with medals earned in a dozen conflicts. She carried no weapons. She wore no armor. Around her, hundreds of watched from raised platforms. Their 4 eyes followed her every movement. Their long fingers twitched with tension. They were afraid of her. She could see it in their posture, in the way they leaned back as she passed. These were the rulers of 1,000 worlds, the masters of an empire that had lasted longer than human civilization had existed, and they were afraid of a single woman from a planet they had tried to ignore. High Arbiter Eth waited at the far end of the chamber. He sat on a throne made of dark metal, raised above the floor to show his importance, but he did not look powerful today. He looked tired and old and beaten. Admiral Vance stopped before the throne and did not bow. You asked for negotiations, she said. I am here. Eth studied her face. She was so small compared to her skin was soft and easily damaged. Her eyes could only see in 2 directions. By every measure, she should have been weak and pathetic. But her eyes held no fear, and her voice carried the weight of thousands of tungsten rods, waiting in the darkness of space. Your attacks have killed over 50,000 of my people, Eth said. You have destroyed critical infrastructure across our territory. You have crippled our border defenses. Yes, Admiral Vance agreed, we have. Why, what do you want from us? Territory, resources, slaves. Admiral Vance almost laughed. "We do not want your territory. We have our own worlds to settle. We do not want your resources. We can find our own. And we certainly do not want slaves. Slavery is a crime among our people." "Then why," Eth demanded, "why attack us? Why kill so many?" Admiral Vance took a step forward. The guards around the throne tensed, but they did not move to stop her. "6 months ago, you found a ship from our world. It was damaged and drifting. Inside were 53 people, scientists, engineers, pilots, good people who had spent 7 years crossing the void just for the chance to meet another intelligent species." Her voice remained steady, but there was steel beneath the words. "You scanned that ship. You saw those people. You knew they would die without help, and you chose to fly away." Eth shifted uncomfortably on his throne. "They were unknown, uncontacted. We had no obligation to help them." "No obligation," Admiral Vance repeated. "Is that how you see it? 53 lives meant nothing because they came from a planet you had never visited." "They were primitives. Their technology was centuries behind ours. What could they possibly offer the hegemony?" "They offered you everything," Admiral Vance said quietly. "They came in peace. They carried gifts, music and art and mathematics, stories from our world that we wanted to share. They dreamed of friendship between our species. They dreamed of learning from you and teaching you in return." She paused, letting the words hang in the ancient air. "You could have had allies, partners, friends. Instead, you proved that you were monsters." The chamber fell silent. Even the guards stopped breathing. Eth stared at the human woman before him. She was accusing him of murder. She was calling his people monsters. In any other situation, such insults would mean immediate death. But the hegemony was in no position to make threats. "What do you want?" he asked again. Admiral Vance reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data crystal. She held it up for all to see. "Recognition," she said. "A formal treaty that acknowledges humanity as an equal species. Full diplomatic relations between Earth and the hegemony. Trade rights, travel rights. Everything you would grant to any other spacefaring civilization." Eth nodded slowly. These were reasonable demands, modest even. What else? "A public apology, broadcast across every world in your empire. You will admit what you did to the Prometheus. You will acknowledge that your decision to ignore our ship was wrong." This was harder. They did not apologize, they did not admit mistakes, but Eth nodded again. "What else?" Admiral Vance lowered the data crystal. Her eyes locked onto Eth's, and he saw something ancient and terrible in her gaze. Something that reminded him that humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. Something that warned him never to underestimate this species again. "A memorial," she said, "built in your space, at the exact coordinates where the Prometheus died. You will construct a monument to honor the 53 humans who died there, and you will maintain that monument forever." Eth wanted to argue. He wanted to point out that the hegemony had never built monuments to other species. But he looked at Admiral Vance, and he looked at the tactical reports still glowing on screens around the chamber, and he understood that he had no choice. "Agreed," he said. "All of your terms are accepted." Admiral Vance nodded. "One more thing." Eth felt his stomach tighten. "Yes." "You will teach this story to your children. You will make sure everyone knows what happened here. You will remember that the species you ignored came back to remind you of your mistake." She turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. "We are not conquerors. We did not come here to rule you or destroy you. We came here to prove a point." She began walking toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed through the ancient hall. "We are humanity," she called over her shoulder. "We remember those who wrong us. We fight for our people, living or dead, and we never forget." She stopped at the great doors and turned back one final time. "You wanted to know what primitives could offer you. Now you know. We offer you a choice. Be our friends and we will stand beside you against any threat. Be our enemies, and we will teach you why that was a mistake. The doors opened. Light poured in from outside. Choose wisely, Admiral Vance said. You will not get another chance. She walked out of the chamber and did not look back. They watched her go. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They simply sat in the ancient room, surrounded by 12,000 years of history, and understood that everything had changed. First contact had not happened the way they expected. It had not been a meeting of equals or a peaceful exchange of knowledge. It had been a lesson, written in fire and metal and blood. And the lesson was simple. Never ignore the small things. Never dismiss the primitives. Never assume that a young species is a weak species. Because the humans had arrived in the galaxy, and they had announced themselves in a way that no one would ever forget. They had introduced themselves with missiles, and the galaxy would never be the same. High Arbiter, a junior officer called out, we have detected something strange in Sector 7. Eth did not even turn his head. What is it? A vessel, High Arbiter. It appears to be drifting without power. Very primitive design. We have never seen anything like it before. Now Eth was slightly curious. He waved his long fingers and the display changed to show the unknown ship. It was small and ugly. Metal plates covered its surface like patches on old clothing. Strange writing decorated its side. The letters spelled words that meant nothing to translators. UES Prometheus. Run a full scan, Eth ordered. The officer worked quickly. Data filled the screen. The ship used chemical engines. It had no energy shields. Its weapons were laughable tubes that probably fired solid projectiles. Most interesting of all, the ship carried life forms. 53 of them. Small, soft creatures with only 2 eyes and pale skin. They appear to be alive, High Arbiter, the officer reported. But their ship is dying. Power levels are very low. They have perhaps 2 days before their life support fails completely. Eth studied the creatures on the thermal scan. They moved slowly inside their broken ship. Some of them were gathered around what looked like a communication device. They were probably calling for help. How sad. How pointless. What species are they? Eth asked. Unknown, High Arbiter. They come from an uncontacted world. Our records call it Sol 3. A small planet orbiting a yellow star at the edge of the galaxy. We have never bothered to visit. And for good reason, Eth said. He laughed and his officers laughed with him. Look at this ship. Look at these creatures. They have not even discovered faster-than-light travel. They crossed space using simple thrust. It must have taken them years to reach this point. What should we do with them, High Arbiter? Eth thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. The answer was obvious. These creatures were nothing. Their ship was worthless. They had no technology worth stealing, no knowledge worth learning. Helping them would cost time and resources. Destroying them would waste ammunition. Do nothing, Eth said. Let them drift. They will be dead soon enough. But High Arbiter, another officer said carefully, they are sending signals. They are trying to contact us. Should we not respond? Why would we respond to insects? Eth asked. Would you stop to talk to bacteria? These creatures are so far beneath us that communication would be meaningless. They cannot understand our language. They cannot appreciate our culture. They are primitives from a primitive world and they will die as primitives die. Alone, forgotten, unimportant. The officers nodded. This was the way. The strong ruled. The weak perished. There was no room for mercy in the universe. The Eternal Dominion changed course and continued on its patrol. Within an hour, the strange human vessel disappeared from their sensors. Within a day, they had forgotten it completely. But they had made a terrible mistake. Aboard the UES Prometheus, Captain Sarah watched the alien warship fly away. She had seen the scans. She knew the aliens had detected them. She had waited for contact, for communication, for anything. Instead, she received silence, cold, deliberate silence. They're leaving, her first officer said. His voice was hollow. They're actually leaving us to die." Captain nodded slowly. "They saw us, they scanned us, they know we're alive, and they don't care." The crew gathered around her. 53 men and women who had traveled for 7 years to reach this point. They had dreamed of first contact. They had hoped to meet other intelligent life and share the wonders of human civilization. They had brought music and art and mathematics as gifts for whatever species they might find. The aliens had looked at them and seen nothing worth saving. "What do we do, Captain?" the first officer asked. Captain moved to the communication console. Their main power was failing, but the emergency transmitter still worked. She began typing quickly, entering coordinates and data into the system. "Captain, what are you doing?" "I'm sending everything," she said. "Every scan we made of that ship, every reading we took of their weapons and shields, every observation about their patrol routes and territory." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "If we're going to die out here, then our deaths will mean something." The first officer understood. "You're sending it home." "Earth needs to know what's out there," Captain said. "They need to know that we are not alone in the universe, and they need to know that the species we found—" She paused, her jaw tight with anger. "They need to know that these aliens had the power to save us and chose not to." The transmission began. A tight beam of data, aimed at a distant yellow star, carrying humanity's first report on alien life. It was not a message of hope. It was not a greeting of peace. It was intelligence, pure and simple, military intelligence about an enemy that did not yet know it had made an enemy. Captain sat back in her chair as the power levels dropped lower and lower. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. "They ignored us," she whispered to no one. "They will regret that choice." In 2 days, the Prometheus went silent. Its crew died in the darkness between stars. But their message reached home, and humanity began to plan.